They walked in hoping to buy a dream car for their 50th anniversary, but the salesman took one look and told them to try a used lot instead. What he didn't know was, their son would return the next day and shake the entire dealership to its core. This is a powerful true-to-life story about dignity, quiet strength, and a lesson in respect the whole neighborhood would never forget. It was supposed to be a good day, one of those rare sunny Saturdays in Anaheim where the skies are picture perfect, the streets are quiet, and the world feels like it's smiling back. Franklin Mitchell eased the old Buick into the parking lot of Briarwood Elite Motors, the kind of place where the cars sparkled like jewelry and the glass doors reflected more judgment than welcome. He parked slowly, hands steady on the wheel, eyes hidden behind prescription sunglasses. In the passenger seat, his wife, Laverne, reached into her purse and adjusted her pearl earrings, the ones Franklin gave her on their 25th anniversary. "You ready, baby?" he asked, giving her a warm glance. She smiled gently. "Been ready since Tuesday." He chuckled, carefully pulling the key out of the ignition. 50 years, and I promised you something nice. A car that makes you feel just as beautiful as you've always looked to me." Laverne placed a hand over his. "Just being here's enough. Let's just look. We don't have to decide today." He nodded, and together they stepped out onto the polished concrete lot, their shoes clicking softly. Franklin in his tan cardigan, pressed slacks, and worn leather shoes. Laverne in her cream blouse, long brown skirt, and a brooch shaped like a hummingbird. They looked like the kind of couple who still held hands in church and never missed a Sunday. Because they were. The dealership gleamed under the sun, all glass walls and chrome accents. It looked more like a museum than a place that sold things. Inside, the lighting was soft, the floor spotless. Salesmen in fitted polos and slim-fit slacks stood chatting near the reception desk, sipping espresso from tiny paper cups. As the Mitchells walked through the front doors, the shift was subtle, but real. One salesman glanced up, then looked away. Another murmured something under his breath, and they both laughed quietly. Franklin, ever the gentleman, gave them a polite nod. "Morning, fellas." They said nothing back. Laverne glanced around, eyes widening slightly at the vehicles lined up across the marble tiles. A Rolls-Royce Ghost, pure white, gleaming like moonlight. Next to it, a jet-black Cullinan with the doors cracked just enough to show off the interior like it was royalty waiting to be discovered. It looked like something out of a dream. "Can we help you?" The voice came sharp and short. They turned. A young man, maybe late 20s, stood in front of them, name tag crooked on his shirt, Chad. His hair was slicked back tight, khakis too snug, smile nowhere to be found. Franklin cleared his throat. "Yes, sir. We were hoping to get some information on the Rolls-Royces." Chad blinked, as if he misheard. "You mean those?" he asked, nodding toward the Ghost and the Cullinan. "They start at over $400,000. Just so you're aware." Laverne straightened slightly. "We're aware," she said, voice smooth but firm. Chad looked them over, Franklin's cardigan, Laverne's simple flats. His smirk was small but sharp. "It's just that we usually schedule appointments for those. And most serious buyers use our executive entrance." He thumbed toward a glass door on the far side of the building. "You might be more comfortable down the street. Our used luxury partner store has some great certified Lexuses and Benzes." Franklin held his gaze. The air between them got very still. "Is that so?" he said, quiet but steady. Chad nodded, completely unaware of the storm tightening in the stillness. "Yes, sir. Great deals. Friendly staff." Behind them, other employees had started paying attention, not helping, not stopping it, just watching like it was a show. Laverne glanced up at her husband. That look passed between them. The look couples give each other when they've been through enough to know when it's not worth it. "Let's go," she whispered, hand brushing his arm. No, Chad said, stepping aside with a mock smile. "You're welcome to stay. Just saying, it'll save everybody time." They walked out. No words. No scene. Just the quiet of two people who'd spent their whole lives having to walk away from places where they belonged. Franklin held the door for his wife. His hand stayed there a moment longer than usual. On the drive home, they didn't talk. They didn't need to. It hung between them, the weight of being looked at like background noise. The kind of sting you don't feel in your skin, but in your bones. Their house in Pasadena wasn't fancy, but it was home. Brick one-story, blue shutters, a tidy yard with roses Laverne tended to every morning. Franklin pulled into the same driveway he'd parked in for 43 years, turned the engine off, and sat still. Laverne reached over and gently squeezed his hand. "You all right?" He nodded. "I'm fine." But he wasn't. Inside, the air smelled like lemon polish and the faint trace of last night's fried catfish. Laverne disappeared into the kitchen, came back with 2 mugs of tea. They sat at the kitchen table. He stared into his cup like it had answers. "Why did they look at us like we didn't belong?" Laverne asked softly. Franklin didn't respond right away. Then finally, because they didn't care who we were. Only what they thought we were. She tilted her head. "You think if I wore pearls and you wore a suit, it would have been different?" He gave a small laugh. "Maybe. Maybe not. But I've been black longer than I've been retired. I know that look." The room went quiet. The silence between them wasn't cold, it was heavy. Like they were both carrying something neither of them deserved. Then Franklin stood up, walked to the phone mounted on the wall, and dialed. On the other end, in a sleek Santa Monica apartment, Marcus Mitchell was reviewing numbers on his laptop, earbuds in. His phone lit up. "Dad," he answered, already sitting up straighter. "Everything okay?" Franklin's voice was calm. "Me and your mama went to look at that Rolls-Royce dealership this morning. Briarwood Elite." Marcus lowered the laptop screen. "How'd it go?" Franklin paused. In the background, Laverne's voice rose just slightly. "Tell him all of it." And so he did. He told Marcus everything. The way the salesman looked at them. The way the air shifted. The way the room silently agreed they didn't belong. He didn't speak with anger. He spoke with the steadiness of a man who had swallowed pride more times than he should have. When he finished, there was silence on the other end of the line. Then Marcus said, "Thanks for telling me, Pop." Franklin nodded, though no one could see. "You okay, son?" he asked. "I'm good," Marcus replied. But something in his voice had changed. "I'm real good." He hung up. Back in Pasadena, Laverne looked at Franklin. "He's going to do something, isn't he?" Franklin let out a slow breath. "You know that boy." She smiled faintly. "Takes after you." Franklin chuckled. "Nah. He moves different." Then he glanced out the window, where the afternoon light was beginning to fade. "Quiet thunder," he whispered. And they both sat there, sipping tea, not knowing that by morning, the very air inside Briarwood Elite Motors would be different. And no one, least of all Chad, had any idea what was coming. The morning after felt different, not just in the sky or the air, but in the silence that hung over Franklin and Laverne's kitchen. They didn't talk about the dealership again, but the weight of it still sat between their words, and the way Franklin stirred his coffee without sipping, or how Laverne's favorite gospel radio station played low without either of them really listening. But 2 hours away, in a high-rise condo overlooking the Santa Monica shoreline, their sun was already in motion. Marcus Mitchell was up before the sun. No alarm. No emails. No headlines. Just purpose. The kind that fills your chest and pushes you forward. He'd listened to his father's voice the night before, steady but bruised, and he couldn't shake it. Not just what was said, but what was left unsaid. That tired pause between his father's sentences, like he'd been here before. Too many times. The kind of pain you don't yell about anymore because it never made a difference. Until now. Marcus drove south just after 7 a.m., the matte black Tesla humming beneath him like a whisper. He wore a dark hoodie, clean jeans, fresh sneakers, nothing flashy. He didn't need flash. His presence would be loud enough. He passed downtown, then Long Beach, then into Orange County. When he pulled into Briarwood Elite Motors, the same breeze from yesterday stirred the tall palms out front. The lot looked the same, silent, polished, prepared to impress. But this morning, it was being watched. Inside, Chad stood near the espresso bar, arms folded, half listening as a colleague joked about a client who showed up in flip-flops asking to test drive a Bentley. He glanced up when the doors opened. His eyes paused on the man walking in, tall, poised, with a quiet fire in his stride, but Chad said nothing. Marcus didn't look around. He didn't take in the showroom. He already knew what he wanted. He walked straight up to the front desk and waited. A receptionist blinked up at him, half startled. "Can I help you?" Marcus nodded once. "I'd like to speak to someone about purchasing a Rolls-Royce Ghost and a Cullinan." The words landed like stones on marble. Chad's smile twitched. He stepped in, confident, casual. "Morning. I can help you with that," he said, approaching. "We typically ask clients to book ahead for. I'm not here to browse," Marcus interrupted, voice even. "I'm here to buy. Today. Both. Cash." Chad blinked. The receptionist sat up straighter. A manager 2 desks away slowly turned to listen. Marcus didn't flinch. He didn't blink. "Sir," Chad said slowly, adjusting his tone. "Of course, we'd be happy to assist you. Just to confirm, you're interested in the Ghost and the Cullinan?" Marcus looked him in the eye. "Yes." Chad cleared his throat. "Right this way." And just like that, the energy shifted. The same air that had once cooled the room now felt warmer, thicker, buzzing with curiosity. Over the next 30 minutes, Marcus let them scramble. Salesmen fetched keys. Managers offered coffee. A specialist walked him through options, colors, interiors, custom stitching. Marcus nodded sparingly, answered minimally. He wasn't here to enjoy the process. He was here to make a point. And when the paperwork was nearly done, when the numbers were tallied and the staff's smile stretched too wide, Marcus stood. He took the sleek leather folder in his hands, held it for a second, and then placed it back down on the table. Chad looked up, confused. "Is something wrong?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he spoke slowly, each word chosen like a pin pulled from a grenade. "Yesterday morning," he said, "your team turned away 2 elderly black customers because you decided they didn't belong here. You treated them like they were wasting your time." Chad's face paled slightly. He glanced toward the office. "Sir, those 2 customers," Marcus continued, "were my parents." Silence. The kind that fills cracks and corners. The kind that steals breath. Every ear in the room tuned in, even if every eye tried not to. Marcus stepped forward slightly, not aggressive, just present. "You didn't know who they were. And that's the point. You looked at a cardigan and a brooch and thought you knew the story." Chad opened his mouth, but Marcus raised a hand. "Don't speak. There's nothing you can say that'll undo it. What you did wasn't loud, but it was clear. You made them feel small. Invisible." The manager stepped out from his office, lips parted as if to intervene. Marcus turned to him. "I'm still buying the cars. Not because you earned my business, but because I'm going to make sure the world sees exactly who you dismissed." He picked up the pen, signed both documents with one clean motion, and set it down without looking back. Then he looked Chad in the eye one last time. "You'll send them to my parents' address tonight. Don't delay. And you won't be delivering them. Someone else will." Chad swallowed hard. "Understood, sir." Marcus stepped back. "Good. Now clean them. Polish them. Because when they arrive at that house, they won't just be cars. They'll be reminders." And with that, he turned and walked out, hoodie pulled over his head, hands in his pockets, the doors closing behind him with a whisper and a shockwave. Inside, the dealership stood still. Staff exchanged glances. No jokes now. No smirks. Just the slow realization that they hadn't just sold 2 luxury cars, they'd been handed a mirror. And what they saw in it would haunt them longer than any return policy. That afternoon, the lot gleamed with urgency. Detailers worked overtime. The sun dipped lower. At exactly 5:42 p.m., 2 flatbed trucks rolled out from the service bay, each carrying a statement dressed in chrome and leather. As the trucks disappeared into the horizon, Chad sat behind the front desk, phone in hand, but no words to speak. Because he knew what was coming. And this time, the silence belonged to him. The sun was just beginning to dip below the horizon when the sound of hydraulic ramps and heavy-duty engines rolled down Valley View Drive. 2 flatbed trucks, polished and humming low, slowed in unison as they approached the modest brick home of Franklin and Laverne Mitchell. The same driveway that had welcomed a faded Buick for over 4 decades now shimmered beneath the descending weight of nearly $1 million in handcrafted engineering. First came the glacier-white Rolls-Royce Ghost, its chrome spirit of ecstasy catching the amber light like a crown. Behind it, the obsidian-black Cullinan, a vehicle that looked less like transportation and more like presence incarnate. They weren't just cars. They were statements. Proof. And everyone in the neighborhood knew it. Curtains rustled. Screen doors creaked open. A few neighbors stepped out onto porches or walkways, pretending to water plants or check mail, but they weren't hiding it, they were watching. Franklin stood at the edge of the porch, hands in his pockets, ginger ale sweating in the dusk light. Laverne joined him, one hand covering her mouth, the other gripping the edge of the screen door like it might steady her spinning heart. "Lord have mercy," she whispered. 2 delivery agents in black polos and soft-sole shoes stepped out of the trucks and moved with choreographed grace. One approached, tablet in hand. "Mr. Mitchell?" Franklin nodded slowly. "Yes." The young man smiled, professional but warm. "We have a scheduled delivery, Rolls-Royce Ghost and Cullinan. Paid in full. Signed for earlier this afternoon by Mr. Marcus Mitchell." Franklin blinked. "You sure?" The man chuckled. "Pretty sure, sir." By then, Laverne had stepped onto the grass, tears welling up in her eyes. Marcus's midnight black Tesla pulled in behind the trucks, slow and smooth. He stepped out without fanfare, hoodie sleeves rolled to the elbows, keys still in hand. "Happy 50th anniversary, Mom," he said, his voice calm, steady, and just loud enough for the crowd to hear. "You were always worth it." Laverne rushed to him, wrapped her arms around his face, her hands cradling his cheeks like he was still 10 years old and had just brought home an A in spelling. "Boy, what in the world did you do?" "Just made good on a promise, that's all." Franklin walked down the porch steps slower than usual, each footfall heavy with disbelief. He walked straight to the Ghost, placed one hand on the hood, then turned to Marcus. "This the same one from the dealership?" "Yep," Marcus nodded. "Same exact one they didn't think you were good enough to test drive." Franklin exhaled through his nose, a half laugh, half sigh. "Well, I'll be damned." Across the street, Old Man Jenkins clapped once, slow and deliberate. Miss Rhonda from 2 doors down stood with her hands clasped like she was in church. Kids with scooters stopped mid-roll. Phones came out. No one cheered. They didn't have to. The silence itself was reverent. The vehicles were unstrapped, guided into the driveway like royalty into a ballroom. The white Ghost parked in Franklin's usual spot, the black Cullinan beside it, commanding attention like a monument. The men nodded, handed over the keys, and left with soft footsteps. Marcus stood beside his father now, arms crossed. "They didn't treat you like you mattered," he said softly. "So I made sure the whole neighborhood would see who you are." Franklin didn't answer immediately. He walked a slow circle around the Ghost, hands trailing over the body like he was reading Braille. He returned to the steps, sat down, took a long sip of his ginger ale, and finally said, "Son, this is too much." Marcus smiled, sat beside him. No, Dad. This is just right. Later that night, after the street had quieted and the flatbeds were long gone, Franklin sat alone on the porch. Laverne was inside, still giddy on the phone with her sister, telling the whole story in the kind of detail only siblings appreciate. Marcus had driven back to Santa Monica, leaving behind only the hum of the new car alarms and a street forever changed. The stars blinked overhead, and the ghost sat in the driveway like it had always belonged there. Franklin rocked slowly, the ginger ale now replaced with a cool glass of water. His gaze was fixed on the hood ornament, the spirit of ecstasy glowing beneath the porch light. A shape moved through the yard. A neighbor kid, maybe 17, walked up slowly, hands tucked in his hoodie. "Excuse me, sir?" Franklin looked up. "That your car?" Franklin smiled faintly. "That's what they tell me." The boy nodded, awestruck. "It's clean." "What do you do?" Franklin leaned back in his chair. "Retired." "Oh, for real?" the kid asked, eyebrows up. "You must have been doing something right." Franklin chuckled. "Tried to live right. Worked hard. Raised a good son." The boy smiled. "Respect, sir." And with that, he walked off into the dark, sneakers crunching the grass. A week passed. The cars didn't move much. Franklin said they were too pretty to get dirty. But the neighborhood buzzed like never before. The Mitchells hadn't told the story, didn't have to. It had walked itself down the block on 2 flatbeds. People dropped by with covered dishes they didn't need to bring. Others paused during morning walks just to say, "We saw." And we felt that. No one mentioned the dealership. They didn't need to. The absence of a name was its own kind of justice. Then, one Thursday morning, a small envelope arrived. No return address. No markings. Inside was a single folded card. The handwriting was neat, careful. "Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, I want to personally apologize for how you were treated at our dealership. It was wrong. I was wrong. No customer should ever feel unwelcome. You deserve better, and I intend to be better." I know a note doesn't fix anything. But silence would have been worse. Chad Franklin read it at the kitchen table. Laverne looked over his shoulder. When he finished, he slid it across the table. She read it once, then folded it slowly and walked to the drawer by the sink. She tucked it in with the birthday cards and Thanksgiving menus. "Keep it?" he asked. "It's not for us," she said, closing the drawer. "It's for him." That night, Marcus called. They laughed. Talked about the neighborhood reaction. He joked that they better not let the Rolls sit too long without driving them. "Son," Franklin said, "I still don't know what half the buttons do." "Mama probably already memorized the manual," Marcus replied. And she had. Before hanging up, Marcus said something quietly. "I didn't buy those cars to show off, Pop. I bought them so the world could see you the way I always have." Franklin paused. His voice dropped, soft and sure. "We've always been who we are. The world just took a little too long to catch up." Down the street, a little boy on a bike pointed at the driveway, eyes wide. "Mommy," he said, "can regular people drive cars like that?" His mom looked across the road, then down at him. She smiled. "Those aren't regular people. Those are the kind of folks who made the world better just by being in it. Because sometimes, the real luxury isn't in what you own, it's in being seen, being heard, and being treated like you matter. Don't ever let someone's clothes, age, or silence fool you. You never know who you're talking to, or who they raised." When I sat down to write the story of Franklin and Laverne Mitchell, I didn't just want to tell a tale about luxury cars or quiet revenge. I wanted to speak to something deeper. Something many of us, especially in the Black community, have felt but don't always say out loud, that quiet sting of being judged before a word leaves your mouth. Of being looked at like you don't belong, even in spaces you've worked your whole life to reach. Franklin and Laverne didn't need to shout to be heard. Their grace, their dignity, and their silence spoke louder than any confrontation ever could. And when their son, Marcus, stepped in, not with noise, but with power, intention, and quiet thunder, he didn't just buy cars. He reclaimed something sacred, his parents' sense of worth. The lesson here isn't about money. It's about respect. It's about how we choose to treat people when we think no one's watching. Whether it's the man in a cardigan or the woman with pearls at her throat, our assumptions can betray us, exposing not who they are, but who we are. And too often, those assumptions cost us more than we realize. So here's my encouragement to you, dear listener: be slower to judge and quicker to see. Treat people with dignity, not just when you think they can do something for you, but especially when you think they can't. Because you never know who someone is. You never know what battles they've fought, what wisdom they carry, or who they've raised. And if you've ever been made to feel invisible, if you've ever walked into a room and felt the temperature shift, not because of who you are, but because of who they think you're not, remember this: your value doesn't shrink because someone else fails to recognize it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away with your head held high and let the truth follow behind you. Thank you for listening to this story. If it touched you, if it reminded you of something you've lived through or someone you love has, please consider sharing it. And don't forget to subscribe to U.S. Justice Story for more powerful, real-life inspired narratives that shine a light on the dignity, strength, and quiet resilience within everyday people. Until next time, take care of one another and treat every stranger like they might be someone's Franklin, or someone's Marcus, or someone's mother named Laverne. Because they just might be. With gratitude.